You say, this is the way I feel or think or believe. Those thoughts, even if it's a negative thought, is a valid say. Would you agree?
Yes. Trio that you run over and over and over in your mind is creating your world of experiencing. What has your attention, that's what's important. If you were watching a little child, pay attention because you don't know where he's going to go next, right? It's paying attention to what you're thinking feelingly about. I know you're not paying attention all the time. I'm more than aware of that. But as much as possible, 5 minutes is a long time, really, if you're really focused on something. And paying attention is really important because you have to know what's going on in you to find out what you're going to be experiencing on the without. But remember, as you think, you are, you do, you have, you create. And it is creating because you're given to create choice, choose. Think about it. What are you choosing? Because thinking feelingly is choosing what you're thinking feelingly about. Just as when you're angry, you're creating more of what you're angry about with more and more and more, and you can get caught up in something and drive yourself nuts, right?
Absolutely. And you said whatever you're thinking feelingly about. And so I want to challenge the listeners about relationships, love, money, health. What are you saying constantly to yourself? That, I'm always sick, that I never have enough money, that nobody will love me. What is your continual conversation to yourself? Would you agree?
Well, that was mine. That was mine. I had every one of those you talked about, and then it got turned around. Because what I heard from Neville Goddard is that I was in charge. And I'm saying, no, I'm in charge. And he says, yes, you are. You may be acting in a way that's not beneficial to you, but you're still in charge. So I went back in thought, thinking certain ideas, seeing the results of it right now. And so decided to change. And all you do to change is you change your attitude. You change your mind. You're given to ask. You're told you receive not because you ask not. Well, it seems to me you could get over that hurdle pretty easily.
Absolutely. The thing is, as you stated that you had all those concerns yourself, and likewise with most of us, I know that I did. And those concerns that I had, was I lovable? My health, my finances, and finances was a big one. Many of those ideals came from my environment, from my parents, from my educators. They weren't even my own. I brought them and purchased them and allowed them rent in my mind from other people.
That's called conditioning. You were conditioned by what's going on around you. The idea is to condition yourself by what's going on within you and make it lovely and a good report. And then as you think you are. It's all really very simple if you could just keep it simple. See, people are always trying to beg off because they're not educated or they don't have any experience in this and that. Or you don't need any of that. All you need to do is just be quiet. You're told, be still and know that I am God. Well, what would be involved in that other than just being still? Feeling still. Think about it. It doesn't cost you anything to think about these things we're telling you. But if you'll think about them long enough, they become yours. You can claim them. They're yours anyway, but you have to awaken to what you have. And you have everything you need all at hand. He said, it's all at hand. Well, that's pretty close, isn't it? And you're told that all the help you need is nearer than hands and feet. That seems pretty close to me. So if it's there, take advantage of it. He's telling you, you receive not because you ask not. or that you're asking amiss. And that asking amiss is what's going on in the world today, right now. All of these things that are happening in the world. That's thinking feelingly on those ideas, and a majority rules the world. So, what are you thinking about? You can save yourself. He tells you work out your own salvation. And all that need is just being patient enough with yourself to feel after that which you desire to experience. That's it, isn't it?
It is it. You said all the stuff that was going on in the world is the byproduct of people thinking amiss. And it's funny because somebody had sent me a prayer request recently, and I know that the prayer request was well-meaning, but it was focused on the world and what was going on in the world, talking about the sickness and the disease and so forth. And I didn't want to give more energy to that. Matter of fact, they told me to pass the message on to like 8 or 10 people. And again, I understand that the message was well intended, but I choose to send out vitality, well-being, love, energy, as opposed to what's going on in the world. Would you agree?
And what you think upon grows. This is about you thinking for yourself, not taking what other people's opinions are, but deciding for yourself. Believe me, it's another world of experiencing, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And I like that you said that because it makes me go back to the conversation I was speaking about earlier about the young man that was worried about what other people would think. And he said, I just don't like being stressed with negative energy. The thing is, when you begin thinking for yourself, you're going to contradict, for the most part, what the world believes. Would you agree?
Yeah, you'll just get used to ignoring it. It's just dribble, so you leave it alone. Look, if it's not leading you where you want to go, then you have no business messing with it, do you?
You don't.
See, but people are fascinated by failing. I know that sounds weird, but really they are. Because, like I said, in private interviews, they'll come in and right away they start telling you everything that went wrong in a business or a relationship and all of that. But it's what is constantly on their mind. They don't realize they're feeding the very thing that they wish would go away. And you tell them so, but, they just give you that look, yeah, well. You know how that is, don't you?
I do. And what they'll tell us is that they're in the real world and that they're being realistic.
Something I'll tell you. I would like to tell you this. When you're in a meditative state, what you're doing there is real, and this is a dream. And when you're here, this is what's real, and that's a dream. You can bring the two together over time, but you can bring things together, and then you can actually live in both worlds at the same time. It's not impossible at all. In fact, all things are possible to those who believe. Well, what are you believing? That's all you need to ask yourself. What am I believing? Because whatever you're believing, that's your world of experiencing, isn't it?
It is. And the truth of the matter is we are occupying those two worlds at the same time. We're just unaware. Would you agree?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's all it is. And when you wake up in the morning sometime and you had a dream and you say, well, I had a dream. Well, yes, you did have a dream. And yes, you were there. And yes, you are feeling that as being real at the moment. But when you're here, that's a dream. That's a nightmare or whatever. But you're in charge because you can choose what you're going to think about. And if you, and Neville would say, just go to sleep dreaming or the lovely and of good report, and then you can take it right into the dream world with you. And you can do so. It can be interrupted very easily, but if you keep doing it, after a while, you gain the strength of feeling what you desire to feel rather than just floating through ideas in your head. But, all of these things just kind of fade away once you get into a contemplative, meditative mood. All of these things will just go away. But they won't stay away because you'll keep flashing on the things on the without. And it's what you're focused on is what's on the within. And that's where we do our work, in the theater of mind, in the mind of imagination. And imagination is God himself. And he's telling you, do a thing and you shall have the power. Whatever you're doing, good or otherwise, you have the power of the doing it. Because he gave you choice to choose. How wise are you in your choosing? That's the question, isn't it?
It is the question. And I like that you said you could take whatever it is that you're contemplating into your dream world. But you can also take what's from your dream world into what we call so-called reality. Your dreams can be the thing that your life is made of if you understand that thoughts become things. Would you agree?
Thoughts are things. I mean, look around you. Everything in here. I mean, there's 1,000 items in here. But they all have one thing in common, other than that they cost something. But they all have one thing in common. They had to first be imagined by someone, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, someone had to imagine this. Maybe they weren't the one that made it, but they told somebody else about it, and then they manufactured it or whatever. But you're in control all the time. What are you doing with your control? See, people say, well, what can I do about it? Everything. That's what you can do about it. Everything. If you'll focus on doing so. But that takes patience with yourself to start. You have to start somewhere. And now is the appointed hour of starting. Start now. I hope you have a dream. I hope you have a mission, a goal. Be it right now. You're a thinking, feeling being. Be it. That's all there is to it, is just be it. And if you'll do it consistently, persistently, it'll be manufactured in your world of experiencing. Manifestation is not a fault of anything but you. You're denying yourself if you're not doing such, because it's there for you. It is offered already. There's so much more offered to you that you're not taking advantage of, other than breathing, right?
Absolutely. And it goes back to, the law of mutual exchange. You were talking about thoughts and then things. You can't separate one from the other. If you're manifesting a undesirable lifestyle, you have to go back to your thoughts, creators. And we all find ourselves thinking amiss. But once we know better, we can do better. Would you agree?
Yes, that's true. And also, running off scenarios of gloom and doom is something people get caught up in doing. They just keep repeating and repeating, not understanding that the repeating of it is actually feeding that very idea that you don't want. Everything in your life is there because of as you think, you are, you do, you have, you be. So change it. You can change it. You're given. Choose this day. And what are you choosing? You're choosing to change it. To change it to what? That's it. What? Feel after it and you'll find it, because you have the power to operate with. See, it's all on automatic. You have the power to operate on, and you're using the power to operate on what? That's all you have to keep asking yourself. That was a question I kept asking myself over and over and over. What are you thinking about? Why is that important? If it isn't important, why are you giving your energy to thinking something that means nothing? Think only on things that you really want to accomplish. And then that will draw to it the accomplishment in things added to what it is you're thinking about. I don't know what that is, but you do. And it's what you know, that's what's important. because that's what you're operating on. That's what you're making your experiences on, what you're thinking feelingly about. So there again, make it lovely and a good report, and that's what the experiences will be, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. What I want to say is that your story is not based off of his story. Your story is based off of nouns. And you have to begin thinking noun in accordance to what you want tomorrow to be. As Mr. Lindell will often say, it's not falling back into the past, it's advancing into the future. So I was counseling a young man recently, and I said, you can't look at what's going on in your present environment. I said, you have to begin focusing on what it is that you want to manifest in your future. He said, but you don't know my story. I don't need to know your story to tell you to think of what's lovely and of good report, if that's what you want to manifest. Do you agree?
Yes. Like he said, you don't know. That's right. And he don't either. You don't know his problem, and he don't know it either. And his problem is he keeps repeating it. See, that is the life of the problem. You paying attention to it. Your attention is the power of that idea to manifest itself. That's the reason why you're told not to imagine mischievous imaginings. In other words, what you don't want, don't imagine it, because you're making up monsters that eventually you won't be able to handle them. And God can't take them away from you because you won't let them go. I mean, he'd take it away in a second, but you have to let it go. It says, let go and let God. Why tell you that if you can't do it? So you can do it because God told you to do it. And if God tells you to do it, then you can do it. But you can refuse. And that's what you're doing. You're just refusing the very help that you're looking for. You see, we are our own enemies. Like I said, Pogo said it perfectly. I have found the enemy, and he is I. And that hit me right where I lived. Because I was my own worst enemy. But it had to be pointed out to me over and over and over before it actually clicked or in, as they say. And it did. And I listened for a long time, for years actually, because being, double-minded, lazy-minded, you put things off till later, and then what happens is you forget them. And it's like Neville said, man is so forgetful. We keep forgetting what we're actually looking for, and so we stop looking for it, and so it doesn't materialize. So it's always up to us. What are you thinking about? Because that is you making your world of experiencing every day, right?
Absolutely. And, I was thinking as you were speaking how often I too have fought for my own limitations. Somebody would encourage me with a word, and I would blast back and say, well, you don't know what I'm going through. Don't give me all that positive stuff. And of course, what I was doing was solidifying the state that I was in, as you stated so eloquently earlier. And we do it so often as opposed to saying, yeah, maybe I do need to change this. Just because change doesn't happen immediately doesn't mean that it's not changing. Would you agree?
That's right. That's right. That's right. Come on. That is right. In other words, it says, don't be anxious. If you're being anxious, that's not helping. Focused on the idea that I am that, and stay focused on that consistently, persistently. Look, you feel about it is it. What do you feel about it? That's it. Feeling is the secret. What are you feeling after? That's what's feeling after you. Think only on things that are lovely and of good report, and that is what you'll experience. It's that simple, but it isn't easy because we're so conditioned, so hypnotized, so mesmerized. And when you think about it, people say, well, I'm in charge. I'm not hypnotized or mesmerized, whatever you said. But you see, that's the way it works. You're not aware of it. That's what being hypnotized and mesmerized is that you're not really aware that you are. But you can be. You can find out how does mind work. It works as you work it, and you are working it with every word. What is the word you're using? The word was with God. The word was God. God is your own wonderful human imagination, but he has given you choose this day. He's backing you to the nth degree, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and you spoke of anxiety, and we've said it before about worry, but again, anxiety is a prayer for what you don't want. You're an energy system. So as an energy system, whatever you're transmitting is what you're going to draw. So if it's anxiety, or if it's anger, if it's fear, if it's worry, whatever it is that if it's love, if it's lovely, if it's of a good report, if it's abundance, then these are the things that you're going to transmit back to you. And you have to be mindful as to what it is that you're giving your attention to. Would you agree?
Like I say, what has your attention has your life. I mean, if you're enjoying life, continue. But if you're not, you might want to think about a change of mind. And you're given to change your mind, change your world. And it's that simple. You can't refuse to do it. And that's what you're doing if you're denying yourself, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And being mindful as denying yourself, and being mindful of what thoughts you're transmitting as to say you can or can't do a thing. You know, as Henry Ford would often say, if you believe you can or can't do a thing, in either case, you're correct, you know? But sometimes in doing good, your good's going to be evil spoken of. And when that happens, you have to continue to do good. And I just want to give a quick story. Years ago, I used to do treatments, what they call treatments, or I would write up affirmational statements for people for a small fee. And I was sending these affirmation statements literally throughout the world because I was using a tool that allowed me to sell them. Anyway, I would personalize these based on the request of the person that was sending the request in. And I sent a treatment out, and the person was very happy. And later on, somebody else purchased one of the treatments. And so I finished the treatment for him. And he came back and he said, "You're a fraud. You know, you've been writing these treatments up to people that don't have the money and they're paying for these treatments." And he says, "I'm going to basically tell the world that you're a fraud." And I said, "Listen, if the treatment's not working for you, I will happily reimburse your money." He says, "I don't want the reimbursement. I want to let the world know that you're a fraud." And as we continued on with this conversation, I said, "Listen, ultimately, you got to do what's right for you." The funny thing happened, though. He came back and he apologized because the treatment that I wrote for him had begun to work, and he was seeing the byproduct of the treatment was given to him. And he apologized, and that was the end of that conversation. You know, but when your good is evil spoken of, do good anyway. Would you agree?
That's it. That's it. In other words, everyone should understand you're on all the time. Are you directing correctly, pleasantly, peacefully? Because you're on all the time, and you are the director, and that's what you were sent here to do, to direct your thinking and feeling, because thinking and feeling is your life. So there you are. You have it. It's all yours. Every bit of it is all yours. God gave you himself completely. That's the reason why he had to forget that he's God, to allow you to do your bidding, your choosing this day. But it works if you're attitude, attitude. If you'll just check on your attitudes, you'll find probably 90% of your problems will just be because of an attitude that you have. If they're not leading you where you want to go, if they're not serving you any longer, then drop them. And when you drop it, completely drop it. Don't do a half job on it, because as long as they're in there floating around, they'll take advantage of any opportunity to express themselves. In other words, you start running off little scenarios of gloom and doom, and then it's down you go. Don't do that. Don't really do that. Be happy. I know that sounds simple to say it. Someone will say, well, that's easier said than done. And yes, ma'am, that's true, because we were the ones to say, what are you saying? Say, I am happy. It's the difference that makes a difference.
It is, and you said, earlier, you said your thinking, your feeling is your life. And if we understand that all exchange is life force being exchanged, money is just a medium of exchange of life force. So if I offer you a service and you accept that service and we do an exchange of currency called money, what we're really exchanging in the medium is life energy. So Jesus valued the prostitute's life energy like he valued the tax collector's life energy or the doctor's life energy, because in essence, if we understand it rightly, it's all God's energy. Would you agree?
That's what you're operating. What else could you be operating on? There's only God, and God is all things to all, because he gave you to choose this day, so he had to give you the energy of choosing. And you are choosing, aware or unaware. All this whole session that we're having is to tell you, attention, awareness of what you're doing. That's what you want to be aware of, because that's your life experiencing, and you can change it. See, that's the wonderful thing about it is that no matter what situation is that you're in, no matter how tragic it may seem, you're still the one steering. You're still the one in control. You're still the one who's been told, choose this day. And if you didn't choose what you're doing, you see, then someone else chose it for you, because I tell you, they're standing in the wings just waiting to see the weakness in somebody to attack. And attack with an idea, an attitude, whatever. But you're attacked only because you're not paying attention. If you're paying attention, if you're on guard in the right way, to order your conversations aright, you'll be shown the salvation. It is in you already. You just have to pronounce it. And you can do so because you're told you can do so. I'm not interested in giving you chapter and verse of scripture. It just says that as you think you are. And you mean you can't think different? They think that thinking doesn't make it so, but thinking does make it so. Why not think what we want to make so?
And it goes back to even in coming alongside of that, it says decree a thing. Would you agree? That's
right. You are. Your world is what you're decreeing, because that's what you're thinking feelingly about. And thinking feelingly is decreeing it. And if you run off little scenarios in your mind, like I was telling you about, 35 years, he's been running this scenario in his head every day, and wonders why. Well, I say, but you're feeding it lavishly. As long as we can understand that it is we who are doing the things we don't like, because we're suggesting to ourselves to do so, and unaware that it is actually what we will be doing. You'll be running off a little scenario of gloom and doom and think it's perfectly normal. But, well, actually it is, given choice. So you can choose any scenario you want, but I think one that's lovely and a good report would be the one you choose, right?
Absolutely. And it goes back to you knowing people almost 95, almost 100 years old, and they're still living out other people's programs.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I told him, do you not realize you're still being raised by your parents? He goes, well, my parents have been dead for many years. Yeah, that's the point. And you still haven't changed anything. And he said, oh, yeah, I changed a lot of things. So like what? And he just kind of goes numb. No, I don't know. Just things. But we do that. We forget. We hear something. We know we heard something that's worthy of our attention to pay attention to, but we forget it. And that's exactly what I did. I forgot it again and again and again. But you see, once it's in mine, it'll generate its energy. Once it's in mine, it'll be working for you even when you're not working.
You know, and it makes me go back to living off other people's programs. You know, I have to ask the listener, whose money program are you living off? Whose relationship program are you living out? Whose health program are you living out? Would you agree?
That's it. No. You hit it right on the head. That's exactly it. They're living out someone else's problem, so they're blaming someone else. But they didn't make you. You made you. They themselves are makers of themselves. So if you don't like what you are and what you're doing, you have the opportunity to make yourself different. And you do that in contemplation, of meditation. I mean, we've given you time and time again how to change your mind, change your world. And if you'll do so, you'll see so. And once you do so and see so, you'll be encouraged to continue doing so and being so, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Sometimes you got to shut out the world. And one of the tools that we offer in doing that is Mr. Lindell's 4 CD set. You can get those as a digital download, or you can get those as a physical copy if you're here in the U.S. Go to Metaphysical Art Theater and order your 4 CD set. These CDs are meditative in nature. You're to listen to them and get the words that's being spoken in your spirit until they become your words. And as that takes place, you'll begin to see your world transform.
So as we're winding down and we're talking about the law of mutual exchange, what would you say to the listener in closing?
It's been really informative.
It has.
Fantastic. That's what I wanted to do. Give them something fantastic to think about first, but enough that you begin to think from, right?
Absolutely.
That's the difference. It makes the difference.
Sir, we'll talk soon.
Later.